Morning, Bob.
Morning.
Notice I'm without glasses now. Bobby, this is your grandpa, Bob Carnevale, also known as Angelo, even though we don't use that anymore. Now, the first thing you want to know is when you buy an eggplant, you notice the way I'm handling it? Now, I want you to handle it so you get the feel. You notice it's nice and smooth, not all crinkly, nice and smooth. About that size is good. This measures about 8 inches long and about 4 inches, 3.5, 4 inches wide. You want to pick it out when you buy them. And they usually got all the shriveled ones around there, and you got to avoid them, or you want to. Now, if you'll notice, the base of the eggplant has a little spot where it's significant with the eggplant. See this? Now, usually that runs kind of a horizontal space. That's fine. When you can get one that's just round like that, just round and the small imprint like that, that's even better. That's what you want. That's the preferred one. Why? I'm not really sure. Supposedly, it reduces the number of seeds in the eggplant. And I don't know how valid that is, but I remember that's what my mother told me. Try to pick the round one if you can. There was a time back about 75 years ago when Anna, your grandmother's grandfather, had a grocery store up in the old Federal Hills neighborhood in Providence. And this was the knife he had. And in those days, before slicing machines, they used to slice the cold cuts. And this is the knife they used. It's a regular butcher's long knife. I don't know where you buy one today, but we treasure it.
75 years?
This is about 75 years old.
Wow.
I'm sure it was made in the USA. What I did is I moved these back like that. See, and then I cut. Trash. Then I go to the other end and I trash. There we go. I got two ends of trash. And the next thing we're going to do is peel this with the potato peeler. See it? See what I'm doing? Now this is a colander, okay? You with me?
Mm-hmm.
I cut it about 1/4 of an inch thick, maybe slightly more, see? Make a nice slice. And I take and put them in the colander. Watch. See? And you notice that way, and then I'll dovetail them, the second layer. You getting me? Okay. So now what do? When I put them in, you notice I sprinkle salt in them in the colander.
Yeah.
I sprinkle salt. That's it. Each layer gets a sprinkling of salt. You never will use salt again in the process until we get to when you're going to eat it.
Okay.
Now we've sliced up all the eggplant. Now what I got here, something I bought years ago. This has got a handle and it's attached to this. It's a heavy piece of metal. I take a plain plate and I put the plate on top of it. Now I did that because I want to check to be sure there's enough room. Come here, look. So this is going to go down because this is a weight, and we put the weight on it, and that heavy weight will press the eggplant and it should drain. I take a regular soup dish. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
You notice it's the, and I do that. I'll take this and put it in there. See the way it fits? Now why am I doing that? Can you guess? It's going to collect all the juices that are being pressed out of the eggplant, and they'll all be in this plate. You won't make a mess, and when you get to using or cooking, frying actually, the eggplant, you dispose of that, and you're just trying to keep things clean. This should last like this a couple of hours.
Okay.
When I am going to make eggplant, I usually take a few minutes before I go to bed at night, and I'll do this process, leave it overnight. But it doesn't have to be that long. Usually 2 hours minimum that you want that to press and drain. Okay? What I use is corn oil. I do not use extra virgin olive oil. Let me explain to you. Extra virgin olive oil is to be used in salads and fine foods that you're trying to dress.
Right.
You don't cook with olive oil. Some people think, oh, I'll use the best. That's stupid, because it's actually detracts from what you're cooking.
Okay.
So don't use for anything virgin olive oil for cooking. It's not intended.
Okay.
What I would do is take this, and I would make maybe I would cover the entire bottom of the fry pan with corn oil. Maybe about, so it's a complete, a little less than a 1/4 inch layer of olive oil. That'll cook. Then I turn this on high heat.
Okay.
And I heat it up. Give it a few minutes to really heat up.
Okay.
Then I lower the heat. I lower the heat to like maybe, well, my range has numbers like from 1 to 9. Based on an average of 1 to 9, I usually cook at around 6. Now, frying the eggplant requires patience. It requires you to be here, put them in, let them cook, and flip them. I'm going to take one and show you what I do, even though we're not doing it.
Right.
You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Now remember that the eggplant's all drained, right? It's at the time. Now I go back and I'm going to fry it.
Okay.
Actually fry it. I take 2 bowls like this. 1, 2. You with me?
Yep.
I take 2 whole eggs. 2 whole eggs. and I'll take one of these containers and I'll break 2 eggs in here.
Okay.
You got it? That's important.
Yep.
I don't want to smash. You know how to smash 2 eggs. This one I'll take regular white flour, right?
Mm-hmm.
The kind of flour used for baking and so forth, right? Make pancakes. White flour, and I'll put, maybe 4 or 5 tablespoons in here. That's going to act like a bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
The eggs, the 2 eggs I put in there, you're going to beat them up, right?
Yep.
Now I'm going to teach you a little trick. That's a family secret.
Okay.
When you make scrambled eggs, have you made scrambled eggs before?
Yes.
How do you do? You scramble them, what do you do?
I use a whisk, and I
And then
whisk
what
them
do you
up.
do with them?
I pour them on the pan, and then I
cook them.
and cook them and scrape them up.
Yeah, now listen, pay attention, right? I break 2 eggs in there. I beat them up good. Then I reach over. Take milk, whole milk, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will pour the equivalent of 2 tablespoons of whole milk
Ah.
right in there.
Okay.
Then I whip them up. And you know what? If you forget eggplants, if you're just someday going to make some scrambled eggs for yourself, do the same thing. When you beat them up, put 2 tablespoons of whole milk in there and whip them up.
Okay. Whole milk.
You're going to get delicious, light, fluffy scrambled eggs. But don't tell anybody else our secret. Now,
Okay.
you got it?
Mm-hmm.
You listen to me. As an aside, your mother hates this. Don't tell her I told you. This is MSG. And she, for some reason, doesn't like it. But what I do with this, I put maybe in the egg, I'll put maybe a teaspoonful of this and mix it in.
What is that?
It's MSG.
Oh, okay.
Okay? You know what MSG is? Monosodium glutamate.
Oh.
Are you recording me?
Yes.
Now I take and I'll put the eggplant in the flour.
Okay.
And what I'll do is I'll just flip it. Get over here and do it. Look. In the flour like this. So it's fully covered with flour.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'll dip this into the egg. Dip at both sides. So now, the reason you put the flour is so that the flour will cause the egg to adhere to the eggplant. Then I'll put the eggplant in the hot oil and cook it. When that's cooking in the hot oil, very quickly, you stay with it all burned. The hot oil, you let it, and you'll see it's frying. You take it with your fork and just give it a flip, and you'll see it's starting to brown up a little. Let it cook. Now, I'll take a towel, and I'll lay some paper towel over it, like so. When that has, now it's got the right color that I want. I want to make sure it's turned brown. The egg, that's the egg that you're cooking. That's on the eggplant. You take it, and then when it's done, I'll take it and lay it on the thing. That's fully fried. I'm putting it on top of the paper towel with a towel so that it will dry. It will dry and cool.
Okay.
All right? Now, that is your process for frying it. You do the whole thing. Usually I put 4 at a time and go quick, but you got to stand over it and do that.
Okay.
And when you pick it up in here, you do that. See what I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any oil that it picked up, it will drain it right in. You don't want this oily, but you want to use the oil. You follow me?
Yep.
We're all done. We've fried it. You know who my favorite president of the United States was?
No.
I've lived through a lot of them, starting with, who was the one before FDR?
Joe, you gotta come over here. I can't have him make look.
Coolidge, I think.
He's gonna-
Calvin Coolidge. Calvin Coolidge was a nothing.
Hold on 1 second. All right. Oh, he's gonna look at you.
Calvin Coolidge was a nothing. If you try to research him, you'll find out he was really a nothing. Franklin Delano Roosevelt surpassed him. I lived through Franklin Roosevelt, right? I lived through Harry Truman, who became president when Roosevelt died. Harry is my favorite president. And I mentioned it, and I remember, if you look at my apron, one of his expressions was, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. But that's not the I have respect him for that. Of course, I've read his book twice. Harry Truman, I think, is responsible for saving my life. I was drafted into the Army, and we were the group that was going to invade Japan. We were going to, I think in another subject that you wrote for, I might have mentioned that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was, instead of our invading Japan, where at least 1 million people would have been killed based on what happened in Okinawa and Iwo Jima. So now we're going to go into the middle of Japan and cut the island in half, invade them and occupy it. And he had a choice to make. Do we sacrifice all our young men that are remaining, or do I drop the bomb? America had developed the atomic bomb. Harry Truman made the decision himself. I'm going to drop the bomb. And he did. And when he dropped the bomb, boom, that brought the end of the war. And all my group of soldiers that went in did not have to invade on the beaches of Japan. We wound up occupying Japan. And we went in there. And as luck would have it, I got sent to a town called Cochin. Cochin is like halfway between Osaka, which is a big city, and Kobe. And it was on a cove, similar to when you think of Route 128 going around Boston. Only the cove was there, and it was all water with a beach. You follow me? And I got sent to, and Cochin was right in the middle where the beach was. When we went there, we occupied, they had an air base there. They had an airport, a small airport, not, you're thinking big stuff today. In those days, the airports were not that big, but there was an airport with a tower. Of course, we took over everything, and the first place I slept in Japan, outside of being on a cot in transit, where I was going to live for, was in that tower. There were 2 other men, there were 4 of us, and we occupied 2 rooms in that. And then we went in and we established a headquarters detachment for the 192nd Ordnance Battalion. And I was the message center chief. I was a buck private like the others. We weren't supposed to be setting up offices. We were supposed to be invading Japan. But what happened when I was there, now we're getting after they signed everything. By being in the headquarters detachment and the message chief, a lot of things came across my desk. And I think I had another session with you where I explained we had to burn records and I was in charge of records and so forth. But among those records, and we didn't destroy these, but the colonel had them. And the fact that I was there, where I was able to grab that and read it, were the invasion plans for Japan. Now actually the first invasion of the main island of Japan, Honshu, was going to be on the southern tip, where if you look at it, there's a southern tip which is closer to Okinawa. There was going to be an invasion there. Simultaneously, or immediately afterwards, this second wave was going to come in at Cochin. And why Cochin? Because it had a great beach. And you were from the beach back to the first road that went through from Osaka to Kobe was maybe, let me think, a little over half a mile of kind of level land. And on the other side of the road is where the mountain went up. And their object was to get in, occupy the beach, get over the road and up to the mountain and cut the country in half. That was going to cut Japan in half. And I keep saying to myself, in fact, I was the top non-commissioned officer. You know what a non-commissioned officer is? He's an enlisted man. A commissioned officer is a lieutenant, captain. So we had a captain for our group. And originally there were just 3 of us, and there were a couple more that set up a motor pool. And I said to Captain Schutte, his name was Schutte, S-C-H-U-T-T-E, Earl W. Schutte. I know, because I typed his name 100 times, and he used to sign it. I said one day he and I would talk, when you get close like this, even though he's an officer, I'm an enlisted man, hey, who's he going to talk to, the walls? So you build up a friendship. And I was saying to Captain Schutte, can you believe that we're here and we're occupying this place instead of invading it and getting killed on the beach? He says, oh, you know that? I says, yeah, I saw it. Okay, he said. But that's what happened with Japan. Now, how did Harry Truman. That's why I told you. Because I say to this day, if Harry Truman hadn't dropped the bomb, then we were the ones that were going to go in. Not just I was in the 192nd Ordnance Battalion, which was part of the 8th Army. And the 8th Army, the boss man was Douglas MacArthur. You heard of him, right? Of course, he was a 5-star general. There was a 3-star general in charge of our battalion. His name was General Eichelberger. and I never saw Eichelberger, but I was as close to General MacArthur as I am to you, Joey. I made it my business when I went to Tokyo, which is where his office was, and I found out that he was very methodical. He would do something at a certain time. Like at 4 o'clock, he was leaving. There'd be an army vehicle waiting for him. He'd walk down. There'd be servicemen on each side. We'd salute him and go. I said, I'm going to be one of those soldiers. So we went up there, and he come marching down in front of us. We saluted him. He went into his car. That's how I got that close to him. Okay? Now let's get back to cooking. But this is Harry Truman, and I love Harry Truman. What we've done is we've fried the eggplant, and there it is. And now it's been cooled, and we're ready to make a casserole.
Okay.
This is, and remember, once it's cooled, you can put it into a container like I've done and close it. Now it can be frozen. Now I don't know if you make your own tomato sauce. We do, Mom and I. However, I've got some in a jar that we had previously made. You don't have it, you can buy a jar of tomato sauce at the supermarket. And I would suggest you buy good quality. I don't know what's available wherever you're located, but there's good quality Italian tomato sauce. They tell you just heat it, make macaroni and use it, you know. So if you're not making it, get a jar of that. Now the first thing I do is take my casserole, take tomato sauce, now I'm teaching you the secret to a good casserole of eggplant. Now you'll notice I made a nice bed of tomato sauce at the bottom. I'll take, this has been cooked and cooled, and I'll make a little pack like so. Now, if you were doing this yourself, what would you have done next? Do you know?
Cheese.
Right, right. This is pretty good. I buy this at the supermarket in a container. It's 100% grated Parmesan cheese, guarantee. And it's pretty good. It's good enough. The cover's made so that you've got a section with 3 holes for pouring, or if you're going to pour it in bulk, it's the other side. Now, you're sworn to secrecy, remember? Remember when we were doing it, we put salt? I said you never use salt again, okay?
Yeah.
Now at this point, you'd put the cheese on there, another layer. But what I do is this, Bobby, look at me. I take this and I go just on each, a little shake of this. Okay, don't tell your mother. I got the cheese, and be generous. Now you can do it either way. You can put the cheese first and then the sauce, or the sauce and then the cheese. Makes no difference. You notice the way I put it on the individual slices, because when that's baking, it'll spread anyhow. See that?
Mm-hmm.
You notice how we put that together? Now when you cook it, we're gonna put this in the oven, 325 degrees, for about 15 minutes. And that'll heat it. And remember, we fried this. That will also bake the interior of the eggplant, right? Now when you serve it like that, and some people take a knife and start cutting it. Don't do that. That's not the way to eat eggplant. When you're gonna serve it with a fork so people can, the way we put it in is the way you wanna pick it out. You can take 1, 2, 3, put them in your plate, as many as you wanna eat, then go back for seconds. But don't cut it like a pie and chop these up. Enjoy the individual slices. This is the way you make eggplant parmesan. Now what you do is you get a preheated oven, 350 degrees, and then you pop this in the oven and cook it for about 15 minutes. Then you take it off and let it set, and then you enjoy it. Remember, when you serve it where they will take individual slices. You don't cut it up like a pie.
Okay. All right. I think we got it. Thank you, Grandpa.
Now, are we going to bother making meatballs or not?